Senator Dianne Feinstein this morning questioning why Jeff Sessions would be testifying only to the Senate Intel Committee this week rather than Judiciary. Democrats do agree, though, it appears, that the investigations into Russian hacking of the election should go full steam ahead, but they're not always on the same page when it comes to who should be in charge and what the end game is. Let's look at the politics of all this with Democratic strategist Liz Smith, Brian Darling, who worked for Republican Senator Rand Paul on the Hill and is now a columnist with The Observer, as well as Democratic political analyst Mark Hanna. Liz, what do you make of where the Democrats are right now?
Well, I think they've been handed a big gift, but there's one lesson I think that everyone should sort of listen to, which is that if your opponent is digging himself into a hole, don't take the shovel out of his hands. And Donald Trump is really his own worst enemy on this. He's been incredibly self-destructive, with his tweets, his disastrous decision to fire Comey. And what's important is that Democrats be patient. They play the long game. They don't overreach because, going out there and yelling about impeachment will not be a successful electoral strategy in 2018. And just quickly, a great example of this is what we're seeing in Georgia's 6th district. Jon Ossoff is out there, sure, commenting on this stuff when it comes up, but he's also not going out there running ads on impeachment. He assiduously avoids using that word and instead focuses on the pocketbook issues facing Americans. So I think it's critical that Democrats don't go too far in how they handle this and try to over-politicize it.
Mark, here's a RNC chairwoman speaking about their view of the investigations today.
This is a fishing expedition to try and run out the clock for the Democrats, hoping to make gains in 2018.
Are you calling for an end to the Senate and House Intelligence Committee investigations?
I'm calling for an end to the investigations about the President Trump's campaign colluding with the Russians. There's been no evidence of it. I don't think that should continue.
Mark, people are accustomed to things being a little different. That is a message from the Republican Party leader that FBI should close up shop.
Right. If Republicans care at all about their constituencies and about the people that voted for Donald Trump, those people want this resolved. They want this brought to a quick conclusion as well. So it seems a little disingenuous. It seems sort of expected that RNC person would be out there saying this. I want to back up what Liz said, though. As you know, Ari, I teach a course in political rhetoric. And Aristotle had a famous saying that you should try to make your opponent unpopular. Donald Trump's doing that just fine on his own. Democrats have a real opening here to talk about issues that are of great importance to ordinary people in their lives. Let Bob Mueller, let the investigations go forward in the Senate where they're happening, and don't try to necessarily pile on. Instead, provide an alternative vision, provide an alternative set of proposals that might not have any viability whatsoever, but to show what the Democrats stand for. What did Bill Clinton do? He was extraordinarily effective at telling stories, conjuring up the imagination. Barack Obama did this as well. They should be putting forward, we should be putting forward as Democrats, an alternative vision that's persuasive. And let this play out in the media. Let reporters dig into this and investigators dig into this and tell the American people what actually went on with the Trump administration in Russia.
Brian, I don't know if you teach a class. I hope you have some Plato to answer Mark's Aristotle.
I do not. I would say that one thing that is striking for Republicans is that if they're not talking about health care and what they're trying to do to fix our health care system, when they're not talking about pushing for comprehensive tax reform, when they're not bragging about undoing the Paris Climate Accords in the name of saving the economy or job growth, they're losing. And so I think this has been very damaging. The fact that we're constantly talking about not even an investigation into collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, we're talking about obstruction of justice. We're way off the beaten path, and it's not helpful for Republicans.
Yeah, but it's not only Democrats that are claiming obstruction of justice. There are legal scholars, legal journalists, experts, Jeffrey Toobin. There are people out there using that term. That's not something, that's not a Democratic talking point. Ari knows this as a lawyer better than anybody on this panel.
We're not talking about the fact that if Trump were to have arguably engaged in obstruction of justice, he's not committed a crime because the president can't commit these types of crimes.
You work for the Heritage Foundation. If a Democratic president did anything like this, if there was any evidence of any kind of connection to a foreign power, an adversary of America, I'm sure you would be the first one in line to yell and clamor for his impeachment, would you not?
You're right. You're right. And where's the beef? Where is the evidence of collusion between President Trump and the Russians? We're looking into it. We're trying to find evidence. But I do admit that, or I do agree with the president in one sense, this is a witch hunt. This is a fishing expedition because there is no evidence out there. We're looking for these connections, and they have been brought out to the public domain. Conversations between.
Yeah, let me pick up the thread because I want Liz to speak to what Brian's saying. I think it's fair to observe that some of what Donald Trump has said has been out of bounds. But that doesn't mean everything he's claimed makes no sense. And Brian is, I think, pushing the part that is the most understandable from the Trump perspective, which is he has all these conversations with Comey about not being the personal target, and he just wants that out there. And at no time in this hearing did Comey say that wasn't the case, right? So, Liz, can't the Republican Party be understood as sharing in the president's frustration that he should be entitled to some clean book of health, or what legally is often called the presumption of innocence, until the evidence leads elsewhere?
Sure, and I don't think that Democrats should be going out there either and saying this is a slam dunk case of obstruction of justice. The reality is neither side has all the facts. That is why we have a special prosecutor. But all that being said, this is not the hill I would choose to die on if I were a Republican. Whether or not this is an issue that's at top of mind for voters, and that's one thing I agree with my Republican counterpart, is that every moment that they're out there defending Donald Trump, they're losing. And, if they're going to go out there and try to defend this behavior, it is not going to be good for them in the long run. It's really bad for, the trust numbers. It's really bad for Donald Trump. It's really bad for the Republican brand as a whole.
Liz Smith, Brian Darling, and Mark Hanna for our political insights. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Harry.
Thank you.